Right now, I'd like to welcome live, who'll be coming through to us through the screens, Fares Hassanieh, who is the CTO Ambassador, Dell Technologies, Middle East, Russia, Africa, Turkey. Then right after that, we'll be heading on to have some bitings. Karibuni sana, enjoy.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today in this session, as I'll be discussing Dell's vision around the edge to cloud continuum. I hope that you can see my slides. So in this session, we'll be discussing, as we said, in fact, the way that we look at our enterprise IT environment. So traditionally, in fact, so what we used to see is a sort of an enterprise IT that is mainly central, centered in this perspective around pushing the data and pushing the IT to the enterprise data center. Lately, what we have seen also is a sort of an expansion of services around sort of multi-cloud and the digital cloud perspective. So we have seen in the recent years, in fact, a sort of an adoption around certain cloud providers. What we could, let's say, the obvious thing that we are currently having now, in fact, is a sort of change in the way that we are seeing our IT. So the first thing that we're seeing is that there is a topology change and a topology expansion. So I think we are having a small problem in terms of sharing the slides, so I'll share them again. Hope this time it's going to work. So to continue, we are having this sort of, like a change in the enterprise IT environment. As we said, the topology is changing, and in this perspective, we are seeing, let's say, an infiltration of 5G technology, for example, that is going to enhance the speed of the network. So that's the first change in connectivity, the speed that we are seeing, the low latency that we are experiencing in this perspective. Also, what one of the trends, in fact, that is coming into the picture is the idea around, let's say, having this idea of data collocation, which is the sort of a repository, of a neutral repository that is in the cloud, but like not in any cloud. It's not in the private cloud. It's not in the public cloud. It is a shared and neutral repository where you would be putting, in fact, your data in this perspective, and that it can be accessed by multiple sort of cloud providers. This would give you what we call, in fact, the feeling of sovereignty that you will be having on your data, that would allow you to master, let's say, to master your data, to be the one that is holding responsibility around it. In fact, you have full protection around it, but at the same time, leveraging different services from either private cloud provider, which is your own data center, your own servers, or in fact the public cloud providers like Google, Amazon, and others. The third change, in fact, that we are witnessing in terms of topology is the proliferation of edges. And to a big extent, as we were saying, in fact, in the past, we used to have this sort of a centralized perspective, centralized data center. Nowadays, what we are looking at is a sort of an expansion of topology. So we don't have anymore this sort of a fence where we are putting our stuff, or we're putting our data and we're protecting it. It's being expanded across. So this proliferation of edges comes with a change in topology, comes with a change in the way that we deal with security, etc. And if we talk about the different types of edges that we are seeing, we can talk at least about 4 edges in this perspective. So we have one edge which is as close as possible to the users, to the mobile users. One edge that is sitting in the back end of our 5G network. We have different types of edges that are going to be running on places where we didn't use to generate much of data, but nowadays with technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, enhanced telemetry, and digital twins and others, we are going to see, in fact, that our factories, hospitals, research and development centers, in fact, are going to generate huge amount of data that even if we go and transmit it to our main data center or to the public cloud, we will see that this is going to overflood our network in this perspective. So the main change that we are seeing over there is, and we need to apply in taking into consideration the constraints that are being applied by physics. In fact, the theory of the speed of light and others, we still have a constraint when it comes to latency in this perspective. So that's why we are seeing, in fact, more of the processing and computing power being pushed to the edge, or this is where we will be having, in fact, more compute processing in this perspective. And also, this is sort of influencing a sort of change in terms of the way that we deal with our servers. So traditionally, a server used to be, in fact, a sort of an x86 platform where we have your CPU and to process the data over there. In fact, but like the server architecture is changing to host more of intelligent cards. Like we can talk, in fact, about the FPGAs, the GPUs, and even, in fact, nowadays, in fact, we have accelerated sort of specialized AI accelerators like sensor processing units. And we're going to see in the near future as well, in fact, the introduction of data processing units, which is going to be a server inside a server by itself. So you're going to have a sort of two servers at the same time being handled in this perspective. So there is a change in the way that we're dealing with our setup. Also, the fourth type of edge that we're going to talk about, in fact, and that we are currently seeing is coming from the public cloud providers who have seen that there needs to be, in fact, a sort of a compute device that's going to be put at the place of where the data is being generated in this perspective. So this is from an architecture perspective, the change that we're going to see. My colleague from VMware, he has talked about the emergence of this multi-cloud perspective. So if we talk about a few years back, in fact, we have seen that there is a sort of a mono-cloud perspective. We were talking, in fact, about the idea of having a single cloud provider, maybe it's your private data center, and you can have, let's say, you can use some services for public cloud from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, or others. But what has become clear for us nowadays is that you will be capable to let's say to use multiple cloud services. In fact, so you have your own data center, you'll have your own capabilities over there in terms of the existing data center, but you will use different services when it comes to different public cloud providers. And we at Dell Technologies, since we're positioned in a way that we are present in most of the enterprise data center, we have our services that are extended to the public cloud providers, or what we call to the hyperscaler. We believe that we are the best position in this perspective to give the customer this sort of operational hub of multi-cloud. And with the cooperation that we're having with our teams in VMware as well and other partners, we are capable to create the sort of layer that would expand, in fact, from your own data center, from your private data center to the public cloud, to the edges, and to others. And this is where our main strategy is being currently focused. So, if we consider nowadays, in fact, the edge as well, and what we are doing in like the change that is coming from the edge in this perspective, there is a unique needs, in fact, that come to the edge that are driving a sort of a seismic technology shift. So first of all, nowadays, in fact, we are seeing more of real-time analytics, real-time control. The idea of taking decisions in a fast way in terms of milliseconds, less than 25 milliseconds. And the way that we have built our architecture in the past is based on a centralized approach. So you have a data center that is controlling, in fact, your branches. Every service that is being consumed from a customer perspective is coming through this data center. So this doesn't work anymore because nowadays, in fact, as we said, real-time control and insight is important. We have, as Gartner said, in fact, more than 75% in fact of the data is going to be generated in the future in the 2025 and ahead from places that are outside your data centers, are outside your cloud. And if we are looking at it, in fact, multiple cameras, multiple digital sensors, IT sensors, etc. IoT is everywhere, in fact, and it's going to be, in fact, more and more relevant. Large volumes of data that are being generated. And if we don't put, in fact, the right architecture in this perspective, if we're just going to push everything to our data center, this is going to increase heavily the cost that is being considered. So we have, in order to push, let's say, this sort of architecture, in order to change it from a sort of a centralized architecture to a decentralized architecture, we need to push more of compute and processing towards the edge, where we were having, in fact, less latency, more capabilities when it comes to this perspective. So the less latency we are capable to deliver, the more we are going to enable in terms of digital insights, in terms of real-time insights, and others. So with this opportunity of edge comes also challenges and different challenges that we are going to talk about. So the edge is different because you have a lot of environmental constraints. Sometimes you have this place in the system where you have where it's far away, you cannot reach it. It's you don't have, in fact, a stable connectivity, and others. It's fragmented because you have multiple OT vendors coming into perspective, and you need to manage also IT at scale. We're talking, in fact, what we used to manage is like hundreds of nodes sitting in a single data center. Then we're gonna move to a sort of an environment or a setup where we're managing thousands, in fact, and tens of thousands of locations, in fact, where we're gonna have one or two nodes in this perspective. So this requires a different architecture that is being put on the table. Security also is a challenging aspect because what we used to do is to have this parameter where we put or physical constraints that we put around our data center. This doesn't apply anymore with the new decentralized and disaggregated architecture. So if we look today, in fact, to the status quo that we are having over there, so each OT vendor is having his sort of, of setup and that he will deliver from application to hardware, etc. And we will end up having multiple sort of hardware environments that are sitting there. The change that we are, let's say, wanting to see or looking to have is mainly trying to consolidate different types of OT applications, and we believe this is going to be, in fact, a sort of the future and sort of requirements from a customer perspective. Consolidate both our OT architecture into one platform, which is your edge platform, that's going to be centrally managed, in fact, in terms of lifecycle management from a single operation, from a single place and a single pane of management. And this is where you will be hosting, in fact, your environment and your setup. So this is what we are achieving, and we are doing, in fact, with our customers globally when it comes to cloud edge continuum. My last thing, in fact, around what we are, or our vision and our messaging in terms of Dell technology. So to make it clear in this perspective, we are working with our customers to provide them with the freedom of choice. We don't want them to be locked to any type of technology. So we want to offer them the choice to have, in fact, their own private data center, to build their private cloud, to have their sovereign capabilities around their own environment, and also to expand in terms of not only public cloud only, but in terms of edge environments. So this is our vision. This is what we are trying to see from technology changes, and what we are trying to invest in our perspective in Dell Technologies, where we are having huge investments that went into place, in fact, with artificial intelligence, machine learning. So we make sure that our customers are focusing on the innovation portion. They are focusing on their digital business, and we take care about their infrastructure, their IT automation, etc. With this, I trust that this session was beneficial for you, and I hope to see you, in fact, live next time, hopefully to fly and see you together. Thank you for your time, and looking forward for the next session.